A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
There's a new national initiative active right now for you to pledge support on pro-life issues. The Christian political party called Australian Christians in Western Australia have launched what they call My Pledge for Life. The pledge is a declaration of collective responsibility to protect and preserve the sanctity of life from conception through to natural death. Maryka Groenewald is the WA State Director for the Australian Christians Party based in Perth. Maryka's joining us. Hey Maryka, welcome back to 2020.
Thank you so much for having me again, and what a great opportunity to talk about life.
And Maryka, let's start with whether this is a national initiative or whether it's something, because coming out of WA, is it just for WA? If you live in Queensland or New South Wales or Victoria or Tasmania, are you welcome to sign this pledge as well?
Absolutely. This is from WA till over east, Sydney, Queensland, New South Wales, all over the place. And I guess it's just, again, on the back of us battling not only the abortion reforms here in WA, but there are elections coming up, and we thought, you know what, it's really time for people to nail their colours to the mast on this issue. And so this Pledge for Life is across the board for everybody.
Let's not leave out our South Australian listeners and those in the Northern Territory, because we mentioned all the eastern states and I thought, I should have mentioned South Australia.
Exactly.
I guess the essence of this is, as you say, we have a collective responsibility to protect and preserve the sanctity of life. And it's a collective responsibility across all these states, but all these states are made up of individual people.
Yes, exactly. And, I've often seen over the last 10 years when you've got a range of candidates, obviously standing across different parties, and it's great that God calls people to those places. But life is the one issue where it's such a sticky point, where there's not quite that, bold commitment to uphold life. So this particular pledge sort of looks at three things. It goes, as a voter, what am I going to do? As a member of parliament, what am I going to do? And of course, as a candidate, leading up to an election, what am I going to do? So very, very important, drawing a line in the sand, really.
I like your differentiation there, actually, because sometimes we think having a view or being able to put a point forward depends on you being a candidate or a member of parliament. But you've got got voters right there, and in actual fact, with your three tiers, they're the first tier, voters. Now, what are you calling on every listener who's of voting age to our conversation today? What are you calling them to do?
To pledge their support to uphold and protect life. And I guess as a voter, we've often seen if you've got a particular percentage in a local suburb, in an electorate, the higher the Christian percentage in an electorate, the more you're able to influence decision-making for and with local members of parliament. So voters, we as voters have an incredible opportunity and privilege to actually keep our Christian presence and our Christian voice at a higher percentage in these areas. And so we're saying, look, at the end of the day, the only thing that speaks to a lot of these lawmakers are the numbers, right? So as a voter, you've got incredible influence. And as a voter to say, look, I'm ensuring that I'm saying I am pro-life. I'm going to be committed to also asking where my candidates running in my local election stand on this issue. And this is going to be a real crucial issue for me heading into the election.
So two parts of that first tier, what you are pledging as a voter and casting your vote for the candidate who stands firmly for life. The second thing, I'm informed about where each candidate in my electorate stands on this vital issue, because sometimes not being informed and pleading blissful ignorance isn't good enough on this sort of level, is it? Because you want people to be informed. And if you're going to sign this pledge, you're going to say, well, I'm going to find out what the positions are of all of those candidates who might be on the ballot form that I'm going to be using to make my vote. Hey, let's go to the new level, because your second tier here is what you're going to be asking members of Parliament to sign as a pledge. What are they pledging?
Well, look, this is a really crucial one, and let's see who signs it. But this is actually to say, as a Member of Parliament, we stand firm and we will propose, endorse and support legislation that actually uphold policies that safeguard life. You know, we're trying to get Members of Parliament to understand every life is so precious, and as a Member of Parliament, we need to be committed to loving both mother and baby so that abortion actually becomes unthinkable in Australia.
And of course, there's lots of different dimensions to what a pro-life position has. And I guess you're wanting people to deepen their understanding of what it is to be pro-life. But it certainly does come back to mother and baby. That's really front and centre. And you want members of Parliament to make a pledge there so that they are understanding and they're putting their, you know, what's that old saying? Nailing your colours to the mast.
Pretty much. And, you know, it's such an unfortunate thing because I've seen so many incredible Christians passionate about this issue, and then they get into politics and it's like, you know, this whole important issue for them is the last thing they're allowed to talk about. So I think even as part of this pledge, it's not just about nailing your colours to the mast, but it's going, hang on, we have this incredible movement of people that are probably more for us than against. Why is it that we have to be so fearful and so careful talking about an issue that is so intrinsically woven to our faith, our understanding, how we relate to people, love people? So this is, to me, an opportunity, even as members of Parliament, to go, hey, hang on, let's own this position. Let's be actually really proud about the fact that we uphold and love life. And why has that become such a terrible thing to want to celebrate? So it's a bit of an encouragement, I guess, for members as well to go, hang on, it's time we actually boldly own what we believe instead of giving into fear.
Well, I like your 3 tiers. The first one was the voter. That includes all of us. And then a member of Parliament proposing, endorsing and supporting legislation and policies. The third one is, and I think you've sort of alluded to something here, that if you're a candidate, no matter what your colours might be and the party you might be representing or no party at all, a lot of candidates might want to hide the fact that they might be a little bit, you know, leaning pro-life, but maybe people won't vote for me if they hear that I am. I think, what are you wanting candidates to pledge boldly and proudly before any election coming, a federal election, a WA election? What are you wanting candidates to do?
100%. So this is, as candidates, again, an opportunity to say, look, we are boldly pro-life, and that means loving both mother and baby. And as a candidate, as I pledge my support, as I'm committed to talking about this issue, there is no doubt where I, as a candidate, stand in my commitment to defend life. So it's a bit of an accountability thing as well, because as many of us have seen over the years, you might have a lot of these candidates, you know, crucial times before an election, campaigning through churches, campaigning through a lot of the conservative areas, and yet when it comes to voting on the issue or actually physically saying, look, I'm willing to pledge and write this down, it's a different ballgame. So this is, as candidates, an accountability thing as well, to actually say, as voters are making their decisions, if you are going to be actively campaigning in churches and passionate about your faith, this is an area that you should be equally passionate about and an area that you should be equally willing to pledge your support to.
Maryka, you're leading a political party, the Australian Christians. You're making a big claim to fame, saying that the Australian Christians are the most pro-life candidates in Australia. It is a big claim. How confident are you that your whole team are holding firm to really strong pro-life positions?
Yeah, look, and obviously we often say in WA, we've known there's been some other great parties that have come into the fold over the years, but look, for us, it's more saying the consistency. You know, over the last 10 years, we haven't wavered in our stance. We've remained on the ground. We've remained active in between election cycles. We've remained active at Rallies for Life. Like, that cannot be disputed. You know, that consistency in declaring, celebrating, upholding life has been probably one of our biggest strengths. So I think I speak not only for myself, but a lot of the candidates. This is one of the most important issues for us. If we as Christians are going to model a different way forward, it has to start with changing the culture. It has to start with changing policy and laws. But we know that starts with changing hearts and minds. And that's the incredible thing that Jesus does. He has this ability to change hearts and minds. But we have to be willing to actually give people the information and trust that the Holy Spirit works in people's hearts to bring that understanding and bring that change. So, yes, it is a bold statement to say there's only one, but I think for us, we've just shown in consistency, you know, over the last decade or so, that this is absolutely in our DNA. Life is just so in our DNA.
And if your team are proudly pro-life, that's going to show up those who are candidates from all sorts of other parties who are not. Ultimately, a conversation like this and this special pledge that we're asking listeners to consider signing, ultimately it's about getting some pro-life candidates elected. Now, it takes a small army to actually get someone elected, and I know you've got great aspirations for Australian Christians in Western Australia. What are you calling on people to do in standing with you in a pro-life sense, and around the fact that there's some campaigns coming up for a federal and a state election in WA?
Yeah, and look, this is the key thing, right? The more people we have on the ground who can help spread that message, who can hand out a how to vote card, who can help us in a range of ways, whether it's prayer or finance. I mean, it really does take a team effort, but I've seen over the years that it sometimes just takes us, you know, sharing the information with a family friend, someone in our home cell, someone at church. And it's phenomenal how quickly the message spreads. So my encouragement to people, even if you're not comfortable about, you know, perhaps spreading this to the masses, hey, think small. Start just with your local sphere of influence and, of course, build it from there. And then hopefully in that, people start following the journey, people start seeing what AC is about, start seeing the heart of AC. And that's how people have, over the years, just become involved, because someone has shared something, they've resonated with it, they've seen we've put in the hard yards, and that's how things grow.
Well, you can find AC, Australian Christians, the political party based in WA. You can find them on Facebook or on Instagram. Here's their website, australianchristians.org.au, and you will find a link there for the My Pledge for Life. And you'll fit one of those categories either as a voter, maybe a member of parliament, or as a candidate. And there's just those three different tiers. You'll be able to see what the pledge is. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. You can find that. There's a link there at the Australian Christians website, australianchristians.org.au. Maryka Groenewald is the WA State Director for Australian Christians Party. Thank you so much, Maryka. Great update today on this special Pledge for Life.
Thank you so much, Neil. Always lovely chatting.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.